In a first in 43 years, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Kuwait visit is crucial in India's outreach towards West Asia. Kuwait's Emir Sheikh Mashal Al Sabah had extended the invitation, and during the visit, the Prime Minister's meetings with Kuwaiti leadership are important for the multifaceted ties between the two countries. India is among the top trading partners of Kuwait, while Kuwait is the sixth largest import source of crude oil. The two countries touched $2 billion last year in exports, and within that, a lot of Make in India products have been sent. Kuwait remains a reliable energy partner for India, ranking as India's sixth largest supplier of crude oil and the fourth largest of LPG. So why is this visit of Prime Minister Modi, an Indian Prime Minister after 43 years, important? Let's try and understand. On the broadcast, I'm joined by Mr. Suresh Kumar Goel. He's a former ambassador. Ambassador Goel, good evening. Namaskar. Thank you very much for sparing the time and speaking with us on Global Mirror. First of all, let me understand from you, Ambassador Goel, this is a very crucial visit, the first time that an Indian Prime Minister is visiting Kuwait in the last 43 years. It's been long due, clearly. But is it just the energy cooperation that we are looking at when we talk about the India-Kuwait relationship?
There are many aspects to the visit, really. It's not just basically the energy security. Of course, that's an important part, as you mentioned. Kuwait is the sixth largest supplier of crude oil to India. But there are two or three more things, really. First of all, if you look at the recent developments in the Middle East, Syria, whereby Iran's reliability or Iran's position in the entire Middle East or the West Asia is a bit of a question mark more in terms of both as the energy security partner and as an important strategic partner for India in that region, number one. Therefore, the whole geopolitics or the economics even had changed in the country since what happened in Syria. And number two, the presence of the Indian community or the Indian diaspora in Kuwait. Now, if you remember that around 900,000 people of Indian origin, which is more or less about 20% of the Kuwaiti's population, is in Kuwait on the different kinds of construction projects in the country. That's another important component. And therefore, trade, economy, energy security, Indian diaspora, and most importantly, the emerging geostrategic importance of Kuwait in the region are the important components. Shreya.
Yeah, Ambassador Goel, two important things that you mentioned. One is, of course, the Indian diaspora, the expatriate community is the largest in Kuwait. We've got about 1 million Indians, but I'll come back to this point later. I want to understand from you the fact that you mentioned Syria and how India has been reaching out to West Asia. And we haven't done that in several years. You know, it's only in the past few years that this government has reached out to this part of the world and understood its importance in the geostrategic play that goes on between countries and at the time of the two wars that are going on. How important does it then become for India to reach out to West Asia when we have a situation in Syria, there's an Israel-Hamas war going on, and there is a general overall instability in the region?
Thank you very much, Shreya. I think that's an important aspect of the relationship that we need to understand. It's not that we have not been trying to develop kind of different views, different dynamics. If you remember the I2U2 connectivity project, developing connections with Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, we have been doing that in the past. But I think the way the situation has now changed in the region, it has acquired a bit of an urgency, I would say. And in that kind of a situation, Kuwait, which is located in the Gulf of Oman, important connectivity to the Middle East and to the Mediterranean through Saudi Arabia and Iraq, I think is an important part of our trying to maintain that relationship in the region. And from that point of view, the ports in Kuwait, the Kuwait place in the Gulf of Oman or the what they call the Persian Sea, etc., have acquired a new importance, particularly because I do think that we are going to see a new kind of equations between Iran, between Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, the situation is changing very, very fast. And
Okay.
in that context, Kuwait acquires a new importance in terms of the whole geodynamics. Shreya.
And therefore, Ambassador Goel, is there also an urgency that countries are now making, specifically, a country like India is making in reaching out to the West Asian region, because we know that Donald Trump is coming back in the United States, and it remains uncertain how he's going to go about taking decisions.
Another very good question, Shreya. I would say that Trump, of course, is a factor which is not yet clearly known to many of the players in the region, not just India, but I think the way
Yeah.
he is described by many players, unpredictable, prevaricarious, etc., etc. There are many adjectives, but what remains certain is that you cannot predict how Trump is going to behave in a particular situation, and therefore, particularly in the context of West Asia and Middle East, what he does is going to be important. But beyond that, and I'm saying beyond what Trump does, Middle East is going to be important for the stability, global stability, because uh, more than 50% of oil supplies come from that area. And therefore, the energy security, the political security, what
Yeah.
happens in Gaza, what happens in Israel, or how Israel behaves in the coming days, it all depends upon what Saudi Arabia does. And Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Kuwait are going to be an important part of the Middle Eastern dynamics. Shreya? Yes.
Absolutely. We'll have to wait and watch how this really moves
Yes.
forward. Ambassador Goel, my last question to you. You talked about the Indian community. There is, of course, cultural ties. There are people-to-people ties that India and Kuwait have seen in the past several decades. We've got one of the largest expatriate communities there. We've also got trade ties in technology. There is energy cooperation. Which sectors do you see that the two countries can really strengthen their bilateral ties in the near future?
Uh, Unfortunately, and I'm using the word unfortunately rather consciously, because most of the Indian community around 90% of the Indian community in Kuwait is engaged in construction project. And that paints a completely lopsided picture of what India and Kuwait ties can be. If you recall, there have been several reports also about the situation of the Indian construction workers in Kuwait, the way they are living, etc., etc. I think that
Yes.
needs to change, number one. Number two, Kuwait is also looking at alternative technologies. And India can be a provider of technology, both in terms of the IT industry, in terms of fintech, in terms of digital areas, and therefore the partnership between India and Kuwait in technologies can be an important area. And we need to basically go from traditional areas into the new areas, which are much more fulfilling and much more satisfying. Shreya.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We leave it there. Ambassador Suresh
Thank
Kumar
you.
Goel for joining us on Global Mirror and giving us a wider understanding of why this visit by Prime Minister is important. Thank you very much.
Thank you.